Where is Daredevil?
A minor. Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated.
We're gonna take this city back.
Over medicated.
In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
This episode of The Infamous Ones addresses sensitive and distressing topics, including the abuse and death of minors. I want to emphasize that the content may be triggering for some listeners. The intention is to raise awareness and foster discussion around these serious issues. If you or someone you know is affected by these topics, I encourage you to seek support from a qualified professional or helpline. Listener discretion is advised. Boyfriends and girlfriends come and go. Your kids don't.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast, a podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast with me, Kay, the Texas girl in a Georgia world, baby. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? It is Sunday, February 15th, 2026, and your girl is coming off of a long work week. And baby, when I tell you I am tired, okay? Not tired, I am tired. Listen, y'all might be getting this episode on Monday. You might be listening early Monday morning. And if you are, I'm sorry because I recorded the episode on the day it was supposed to be recorded. And yeah, came home from work probably and fell asleep knowing me. So if you're getting it on Monday, that's why, because y'all know where I work, it is some crazy hours. We got crazy schedules. I've worked like, I think 10 days straight. Yeah, somewhere around there. So your girl is a little exhausted, okay? One week I'm working damn near every day, and then the next week I'm not. But lately I've been putting in so much overtime. Mama's on a mission to make some things happen, okay? Listen, I got a goal I'm trying to accomplish by the end of March if I can. So y'all just bear with me. But on another note, how was y'all's Valentine's Day? Like, I hope y'all had a day of love that, you so deserve. Your girl was working, but it was still a great day. I saw so many happy couples and, hopefully y'all will stay that way. And the same people that you were posting in your Valentine's pictures, you're also posting in the matching Christmas PJs. Okay, just saying. Anyway, what y'all sipping on today? Me, I've got this nice little concoction of Malibu rum, pineapple juice, a shot of vodka, and some grenadine, and it is a yum. Okay, it's got me feeling good. And y'all know I got my popcorn too, of course. Now listen, this case today, whoo child, it had me mad as hell. And if you are a hardworking mother and you love your kids like I love mine, let me tell you, this one here had me so fucking hot. Like, when I say some people shouldn't be mamas, some people shouldn't have kids, this entire situation was just messed up. Like, and honestly, you might need more than one drink because let me tell you. But you know what? Just y'all gonna see what I'm talking about. Let's get into it. Hop on in and buckle up, baby, because we're going to take a ride to H-Town. That's right. We're going to Houston, Texas in the year 2020. Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion had every chick thinking that they had that wop when some of them really had that flop. Roddy Ricch was all up in the box. The movie theaters was pretty much on ice. So, we were watching hits like Stolen by My Mother, the Kamaya Mobley Story on Lifetime. And we saw just how classy Michelle Obama was in Becoming. But one of the biggest things about 2020 was the several thousand of lives that were lost, all behind a pandemic that swept the nation. coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. But not all the deaths came from COVID. In the land of Beyonce, aka H Town, for one little boy, his death was far more graphic and gruesome, leaving an entire family and community just wondering why. Y'all ready to ride? Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Jordan Lee, surviving victim, Trayvon Lee, surviving victim, Kendrick Lee, victim, Courtney Lee, Gloria's baby daddy and father to Kendrick, Jordan, and Trayvon, Javion Kirkland, surviving victim, Jonathan Kirkland, Gloria's other baby daddy and father to Javion, Daryl Towner, Gloria's husband, and the infamous murderers of the week, Gloria Williams and Brian Coulter. Gloria Yvette Williams was born December 26, 1985, to Hazel Williams in what is assumed Houston, Texas. Now, I couldn't find absolutely anything on this girl as far as her childhood, but it's safe to say that Shawty Girl was out there, like not really stable, one of those that thought that, men were at her disposal, and in a way they were. I mean, she was definitely giving up that hot pocket. She had her fair share of men at 20 years old. She was pregnant with her first kid, which, in all fairness, it ain't bad because, she's not a teenager, but still, like, Shawty was a pro. Now, I couldn't find anything on the father of the first child because he's now deceased. But needless to say, obviously, she got pregnant because in 2002, she gave birth to her first child, Jasmine Renee Whitaker. And it didn't stop there. It didn't, really work out with Jasmine's dad, but Gloria wasn't worried because shortly after ending things with Jasmine's dad, she ended up meeting Courtney Lee. Now, she and Courtney were heavy over each other. Like they were just so in love. And shortly after they got together, she got pregnant again. This time with her son, Jordan Cordell Lee, who was born in 2005. Shortly after Jordan is born, Courtney and Gloria break up. And she doesn't let it get her down. Like she meets another guy who is now also deceased, but the two of them start dating and she got pregnant again and gave birth to another daughter. Now, this was the only child who I could not find their name, and it irks me, but a lot of this stuff was like a serious deep dive, like going into social media as far back as the year 2000, checking every single page, trying to, connect people. And I didn't want to assume because there was a lot of connections that I saw that I was like, okay, I think this is this person, but I wasn't sure. And rather than give false information, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with what I know for sure is correct. And Harris County was adamant about not letting these babies' names get out. Like I just so happened to come across a Facebook thread where the names were listed and saw some pictures that, had been posted in the media and people were just like, "Oh yeah, that's such and such kid." So that's how I got most of the names. But Harris County was really like, "Hey, we're not letting this information out." So it was a lot. But even prior to the father's death, he wasn't really around like that. Melody Robinson was the paternal grandmother to this little girl. And when the baby was only 2 weeks old, Gloria felt like she couldn't handle being a mother to three kids. So she gave the baby to Melody. And everything was going, good for a minute. But then all of a sudden, Gloria was on some, "Oh, I can't do this. I want my baby back." And she turned around and came back and got her kid. But literally a few months later, she had another change of heart and she gave Melody her daughter back again. And this time, Melody made sure that Gloria couldn't come and just, take her away. She filed paperwork legally. And around this time, she reconnects with Courtney, which is Jordan's daddy. And they rekindled their little love affair or whatever. And once again, surprise, she ended up pregnant. This time with their son Trayvon. And they were happy and they were in love. They were living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the time. And at some point, they moved back to Houston. And during the course of their relationship, she gets pregnant again and gives birth to another son, Kendrick Lee. And they're one happy family. But I guess Courtney couldn't deal with Gloria much longer. And at this point, her youngest daughter is off living with her paternal grandmother. So she's got her daughter Jasmine plus her 3 boys with him. And, Gloria liked the fact that she didn't have to worry about, her kids being taken care of. She didn't have to worry about being taken care of herself. And, she could still see her other child whenever she wanted. Melody made sure to invite them to, functions and birthday parties and all of that. And of course, Gloria would bring the boys so that they could see their sister. But some time goes on, and around 2012, Courtney and Gloria break up again. He moves to Louisiana, so he doesn't get to see his 3 sons as much. Mind you, again, they've got 3 sons together, Jordan Cordell Lee, Trayvon Lee, and Kendrick. So he doesn't get to see them like that because he's in another state now. And Gloria is taking care of all of them plus Jasmine. And, she's trying to figure out how to make things work. She ends up meeting up with an old friend from high school by the name of Jonathan Kirkland. Jonathan and her went to high school together. And, even though they didn't hook up in high school, she bumped into him and she sees him on social media. And she was like, damn, he's still fine as hell. So she hits him up and the two of them start kicking it. Now, Jonathan was a bit of a bad boy. And Gloria liked her some bad boys. I mean, we women, we all go through that phase where we like a bad boy. But Jonathan had a few charges on him for domestic violence and a few DWIs or whatever. But Gloria didn't care. She still wants to be with him. And then, of course, she gets pregnant. Surprise! So now she's pregnant. And right before she's said to have the baby, her and Jonathan get into it. Like she's accusing him of going out there and fucking around and all of that. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why you on this bullshit? So she gets fed up. And one day they're arguing and she hits him in the mouth and like draws blood. And he's like, bitch, are you fucking crazy? And he just comes at her and she gets scared. And mind you, she's pregnant. Also, they are living with his mother. They don't have their own place. So they are living with his mother and all of her children. So she runs off and she calls 911 because she knows he's coming for her. So she calls 911 and it's an open line and they can hear everything that's going on because, she never hung up the phone after she called him. She was like, oh, he's coming after me. Oh my God, y'all got to help me, help me, help me. And then she just drops the phone, but she never hangs it up. So they hear everything that's going on. So the cops come out and they cuff up Jonathan, and which is crazy to me because she popped him in the mouth first and drew blood. But they cuff up Jonathan and he gets arrested. And this is literally like a month before Gloria is due to have their son. So a month later, while he's in jail, she gives birth to their son, Javion Kirkland. But Jonathan is now in jail doing a 2-year bid. So at this point, Gloria didn't have a place to stay. And, that was a common thing with her as far as living quarters. It was very sketchy because she was always going from place to place to place. And, she had been staying with Jonathan and his mother the last few years since they got together. But because Jonathan was in jail, she's like, okay, I don't think his mom is going to let me stay here. But surprisingly and luckily, Jonathan's mother, Linda Smith, she was like, listen, I know you and my son ain't together no more. And I know he in jail, but I don't want to see you and these babies out on the street. So y'all can stay here. And Gloria, she was grateful for it, while she's staying in the house. Linda's, helping her out, doing everything she can to help. And I mean, she has to get on Gloria sometimes about making sure that the kids are staying clean and, taking care of them, doing the basic stuff that she's supposed to do as a mama. But then Linda starts noticing stuff. Whenever Linda would leave to go to work, Gloria would have men coming over, men that Linda didn't know. Naturally, Linda didn't like that. She didn't know what was going on. She's at work, making money, trying to support everybody because she's supporting 5 kids. And Gloria got the nerve to have strange men in her house. And it ain't her son because he locked up for her. Oh, no, ma'am. Oh, no, 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 no. So Linda has a little conversation with Gloria and she tells her, baby girl, I was trying to help you, but at this point, you're going to have to go. You bringing all these strange men in my house while I'm gone. You got them around your kids. You got them in my house. I don't know these men. I don't know these people. I'm sorry, but you and your kids going to have to go. And so Gloria packed up their stuff and she moved out. Now, eventually, like a year later, Jonathan ends up getting out of jail and he's like, okay, where's my kid? Where's my son? But Gloria and Javion are long gone. Like they're bouncing around, moving from place to place, staying in shelters. But in 2016, Gloria's baby daddy, the first one, Courtney, he pops back up. He's moving from Baton Rouge back to Houston, and she's plotting. She was like, "Ooh, this might give us an opportunity to rekindle some old flames." But Courtney's only starting to come around again for the boys. So he goes back to, getting the kids every other weekend like he had been doing before. And one day, Gloria goes to him and she was like, "Hey, so, you ever think about us getting back together?" And at first, Courtney kind of plays it off or whatever because he wasn't sure what kind of time she was on. But Easter of 2017 comes around and he's coming to see the kids. And she comes out of left field again. And she was like, "Courtney, you don't miss me, baby. You don't miss us. We were good together." And he was like, "No, I'm cool. I got a girl now. I love her. We getting married in a few months. And to be honest with you, I really want the kids to be in the wedding." And so Gloria hears this, and of course, she's pissed because she's like, "Oh, you getting married to somebody else? What about us? We supposed to be together. We got kids together, blah, 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 blah." But it's true. Courtney had a fiance, Dion, who he loved with all of his heart, and he was about to lock it down with her. And their wedding was set for just a few months, like later in June. So he didn't feel the need to try to work it out with Gloria because he got somebody. He's with somebody. He loves her, you know? But Gloria didn't want to hear that. She wasn't happy about it at all. Like, so when he left, she was like, "Okay, I'm going to fix him. Oh, you don't want to be with me? Okay, see if you see these kids." Honey, she took them kids and dipped, blocked this man on Facebook, blocked his phone number from calling, and she just literally took the kids and disappeared. Like he's reaching out, but no success. See, bitches like that make me sick. I swear. He and his wife Dion, they ended up getting married and having their ceremony, but the kids weren't there to celebrate their day like he wanted. But okay, so here's the thing. Even though she was upset at Courtney, she had her a little boo thing of her own that she had met at the McDonald's. Mhm. His name was Daryl Wayne Town. The Experience the Exhale 2.0 Summit is coming fall 2026. Experience the Exhale is a faith rooted wellness community for women that are navigating life, love, and identity. If you're in a season of transition, married, separated, divorced, or simply rediscovering yourself as a single woman, this is your safe space to breathe, heal, and gain clarity. Through guided support and a powerful sisterhood, Experience the Exhale helps you release what no longer serves you and step into your next chapter with peace and purpose. Connect with us and locate your rainbow. Sis, it's time to exhale. Follow Experience the Exhale on all social media handles, Instagram and Facebook at Experience the Exhale. You can also check out their website to take the clarity quiz on www.experiencetheexhale.com. Daryl Wayne Towner was born October 21st, 1961 to Frank and Jimmy L. Love Towner. Ooh, that's a long name. Now, I do know that he had one sister named Carol, I believe. And one day, Gloria is living in the shelter with her kids and she decides to take them to McDonald's to get something to eat. So, they're there eating and, trying to suck up time or whatever before they have to leave. And so they're eating and she sees Daryl. And they pretty much connect like instantly, and he became her savior. Like he sees her sitting there and he was like, "Wow, she looks like she's really, struggling with these kids." And, they strike up a conversation and they start getting to know each other. And he's telling her, "I want to be there for you and these kids in every capacity, baby." He's older, he's more stable. And so they started dating, and Daryl became the father that Gloria felt like was needed for her kids. He was stable, he had a good job, he was in transportation, all of that. And that's what Gloria felt was important. So it was also important for her to one up Courtney. And so it wasn't a surprise when they decided that they were going to get married. It's not like Courtney going to want to be with her. So she was like, "Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get with this dude." And on October 10th, 2017, the two of them get married. Daryl becomes super dad. He's at all the meetings, the school functions, helping the kids. He's even taking them to their father so that they could have, visitation. And Gloria, she's genuinely happy. The kids, they're attending Holquist Elementary School. Her youngest daughter was living with her grandmother still, but she still had a good relationship with her. She had the rest of the kids with her. They were living a normal life. Daryl was, being a great father to the kids. His sister Carol used to talk about how he would always bring them around at family functions and how happy and healthy and clean that they were. But there were things that were a little trying too. Shortly after they got married, in February of 2018, they got evicted from the apartment complex that they were living in at the time. And it wasn't like Daryl just wasn't trying to pay the bills. He was. He was working hard, but he was also taking care of a family that was much bigger than what he anticipated. And then out of nowhere, Gloria's world is rocked because a year later, on August 9th, 2019, Daryl has a stroke and he dies. And Gloria is crushed. This man has worked so hard. He's been busting his ass day in and day out, and he just has a stroke and dies. She's hurt. This is her husband. She can't imagine life without him. She technically can't really do much without him because he was taking care of everything. And at first, Carol and the family, they're there for her, but then they start to notice that Gloria kind of starts to disappear. She's not around as much anymore. They're not seeing the kids as much. Carol's calling her and it's just like, hey, is everything okay? And Gloria's like, yeah, everything is cool. You got some money? And Carol told her, yeah, I can bring it to you. Shoot me your address. And she knows it's hard for Gloria since Daryl passed. But Gloria didn't really want Carol around like that. Like, she didn't want her to know where she lives. So she would tell her, okay, well, hey, just meet me at the entrance of the complex or just meet me down the street. She would never bring her to the house. She didn't want her to see the condition that she was in or the condition that the kids were in because it was not good. And then eventually, Gloria disappeared with the kids. She moved and nobody knew where she was. So now Gloria's trying to make a way with herself and her 5 children when she happened to meet the man that would ultimately turn her life upside down. And that man is Brian Coulter. Brian Ward Coulter was born December 12th, 1989 to Deborah Coulter. And I'm going to keep it a band with y'all. This little ugly ass looking sheen version of Eminem was nothing more than a piece of shit. Like, his entire life was just crime. And I'm talking about from like teenager status. Like, he had evictions on his record as a teenager. Like, seriously? How you do that? In 2012, he got a charge for tampering with a building inspection certificate. Like, who the fuck does that and why? Like, what the fuck were you trying to do? Stop a Popeyes from being built in your neighborhood or something? 2 years later, he gets a charge in 2014 for drug paraphernalia. Like, this boy literally looked like a walking bong, but okay. And then in 2015, he ended up having a kid and gets put on child support, which, was nothing for him because he really didn't do shit for his son anyway. Now, Brian supposedly had big dreams. He was going to break out into the music industry. He was going to be a big music producer. So he had his own label, Family Over Everything Productions. He called it FO. And then he met Gloria, the single mother. And of course, it didn't bother him that she was taking care of 5 kids, as long as she was taking care of him. You know what I'm saying? So the two of them started kicking in, and he's telling her all the good stuff that she wants to hear. Baby, I'm going to take good care of you. I'm about to blow up in the music industry. Everybody going to be on me. Watch, we going to be good, baby. You with a winner. Me and my little Honda Accord. And Gloria is like, oh, yes, my man about to be a big music producer. So they start, kicking it real heavy. And not long after she met him, the two of them ended up moving in together. hmm So Brian ends up moving in with Gloria in her spot, and everything is good for a little bit. But Brian has a lot of anger, like a lot of aggression. And Gloria sees it, but she doesn't really act on it. Now, initially, Gloria had her kids, Jasmine, Jordan, Kendrick, Trayvon, and Javion, living with her. They were all in the Alif Independent School District, but because of the constant moving that she was doing, they started missing school. And the school started sending truancy papers around 2019. And of course, Gloria tried to do right like a couple of days in there, but it's only been, so much that you can do right before you go back to your old ways. And she would just kind of disregard the papers. And before you knew it, papers are being sent out saying that she can go to jail. September of 2020, excuse me, September of 2019, CPS tried to do a home visit, but nobody answered the door. Gloria wasn't stupid. She knew that if she answered their door, they was gonna take them kids from her. That's why. So you got 4 boys and 1 girl living in the house. And then you got Brian and Gloria, who are basically collecting checks from them. Why is that? Well, it just so happens that 2 of her kids, Kendrick and Trayvon, happen to be special needs. So they both have autism and they're receiving checks from the government. But Gloria was getting a little bit more because she was getting all of these benefits for all of the kids, and it totaled around $2,000 a month, which, ain't no small chunk of change. But they're all living at City Park 2 at West Oaks on Greencrest near Addicts Clodine and the West Park Tollway. So Gloria, she's getting this money. She's whining and dining her man with the money, posting pictures of all the meals she's cooking for him, but giving the kids junk to eat. And that's if she fed them. And it got to the point that her oldest daughter, Jasmine, she couldn't take it no more. She's like 15 years old, and it becomes so much for her that she just leaves. Like they were constantly arguing with each other, constantly at each other's throats. So she just dipped. For over a year, she was living out on the streets, struggling to survive. She ends up being hospitalized, and when they ask her who they can call for her, she doesn't give them Gloria's name. No, no. She calls her younger sister's grandmother, remember Melody Robinson, and she says, "Hey, can I come live with you and my sister? I can't go back to that house. Brian is mean. He's hateful. He's always yelling at us. My mama, she just let him get away with it. I don't like it. I don't like how he is." And so Melody is like, "Yeah, baby, you can come and live with me, no problem." She had gotten to know her and bonded with her when she was living with Gloria, so she didn't mind keeping the sisters together. She was almost 18, but anything was better than what she was dealing with at home. And so with Jasmine gone, Brian really lets loose, and his focus was mainly on Kendrick and Javion. He picked on them so much and was constantly abusing them, hitting them for no reason. Jordan and Trayvon, they're in the house and they're seeing all of this and they're scared. They don't know if they can speak up or say anything. With each day that goes by, the kids are getting picked on more and more, abused, mistreated. And then the world stops because COVID hits. The pandemic hit, and kids that are already falling through the cracks and slipping through child protective services are suffering because visits aren't coming as they should. Sadly, there's an open case for child abuse out on Gloria already. Since Jasmine had told her, sister's grandmother what was going on, CPS opened a case up on it. But the case had been going on since all of that time, but they can't do anything because the pandemic hit and people are scared to be around other people for fear of getting sick or, dying. So unless it's an ultimate dire situation where somebody is murdered, they can't just go out there to the house anymore because now it's a matter of health. And Brian takes full advantage of this. And the couple doesn't have to worry about being evicted because with COVID, there's a moratorium on evictions being filed. People were getting so far behind on their rent, and the government is paying for their housing because everybody is stuck inside. They can't go to work. So they're, good for them. They're living in this place, and Brian is beating these kids almost on a daily and over the dumbest stuff too. If they made too much noise, they got beat. If they dropped something, they got beat. Whatever he could think of as a valid reason, he would beat those children. Gloria never did anything about it. She would just watch and observe. And then she would go and cook for her man and post meals on her social media about what she cooked. And baby, the pictures that I saw, that food looked disgusting. In the words of my son, eat yuck. And if you looked at Brian's social media, you would never know that Gloria had kids because he was always posting him and her, but he never posted about the kids, mainly because he kept them hidden. But he had no problem posting about his jewelry and all of his stuff and how much it cost. This fool swore that he had a $30,000 necklace on his neck. Wrong. It may have been $30,000 necklace in Monopoly money, but not real money, honey. But that's just how he was. He was like, "Oh, I'm flossing on these fools, but you sleeping on an air mattress. Shut the fuck up." So, with the pandemic, the kids are stuck in the house, they can't go to school, and everybody's social distancing, which means that, they're at the wrath of Brian and Gloria, mainly Brian. Brian's telling Gloria, "These kids is getting on my motherfucking nerve. They bad as shit." And rather than her, like, try to be a mother and talk to them or take up for them and tell Brian, "Hey, their kid's stuck in the house, leave them alone. They have nothing to do anymore." She's allowing him to physically discipline them. Now, I don't know if he had her dick dumb or what. I don't know if because he was telling her that he was gonna be the man in her life, that she thought it was best for him to do that, but she let it happen. Several months go by, and it's now November 2020. Gloria and Brian, they still have the kids locked away in the bedroom with limited interaction. So rather than the kids be able to play and, at least play in the house, Jordan, Trayvon, Kendrick, and Javion would have to sit in their room with no phone, no TV, just the air mattress and bottles of water to drink. And they had to use it to urinate in, which was crazy. Now, Brian and Gloria would bring them food and, just kind of keep them locked away. So one day, I guess it just became too much. Kendrick was being a young child, just, playing with his toys. There was this water jug that was in the room that the kids were drinking out of. And Kendrick had drank too much of the water or more than he should have. And it was frustrating to Jordan. And he tells Brian about how Kendrick had drank most of the water. So Brian got pissed off and just lost it. And he's like, "I'm sick of this shit. I'm tired of y'all misbehaving." And he goes storming into the room and he just starts beating Kendrick, punching him in the face. He grabs one of Kendrick's toys and he hits him with it. Brian ends up knocking Kendrick unconscious and then just leaves him there. The kids are in the room and they think that, Kendrick is asleep. Like it must be one of them ass whoopings that you get as a kid where you immediately take a nap after. Y'all remember, don't act like I was the only one that got your ass whooped and you took a mean ass nap afterwards. But Kendrick ain't sleeping. He's dead. Gloria doesn't even bother to go in and check on her child. It's not until the next morning that she goes into the room and she sees her son Kendrick lying on the floor with a black eye, and she just breaks down crying, "Oh my God, what did you do? What did you do to my baby?" And Brian tells her, ain't nothing you can do now. It's in God's hands. So she tells the other kids to leave the room and she's crying and she's holding Kendrick's lifeless body. Brian's walking around like ain't shit happened, scratching himself and shit, nasty motherfucker. She's scared. She doesn't want to lose her other kids. She doesn't want to lose Brian. She's wondering if he's gonna try to flip it on her. So she says, "Okay, what do I need to do? Tell me what to do." And he tells her, "Oh, just go get a blanket and lay it over his face." And that's exactly what she does. She gets a little blue blanket and she puts it over Kendrick's face. She tells the other children to go into the other room and she closes the door, leaving her son's body there. And this is where I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No. You know you done fucked up, right?
baby, ain't no way a man gonna keep me from being a mama to my children. You hear me? Your first mistake was leaving him there overnight and not going to check up on him. But when you saw him unresponsive and cold to the touch, you should have just been like, "Okay, let me call 911. Oh, you done killed my kid." You should have called the cops. But you listen to a man, like not even a man, but a waste of skin. Just, so pathetic. Now, again, I understand that there's a pandemic going on. I do. And resources are very tight. But this is your child who has died. Like he is literally dead, laying in the middle of the floor. And that's how it stayed for several months. And now, because Brian did this horrific act, the remaining children become more and more isolated and more scared of the man that's supposed to be a father figure. Brian and Gloria were living life like nothing ever happened. They were posting all over social media. Now, they did, however, stop posting shortly after Brian killed Kendrick. They were kind of off the grid, so to speak, for about 3 or 4 months until February of 2021 when they kicked back up again, like, nothing happened. So, along with reconnecting on social media, they also decided to move. In March of 2021, Brian and Gloria found a nice apartment complex about 15 minutes from where they were living in the West Chase district, and they used some of the benefit money to get a new place. So they pack up their belongings and furniture and everything, and they move, leaving the children behind to live with a decomposing body. They left them kids to go and live their lives. Gloria gave Jordan a cell phone so that she could keep in touch with him. And she made it clear that he wasn't to call anybody but her or Brian and not to tell anyone what was going on. They had the bare necessities at their apartment to survive, sleeping on air mattresses already, eating the junk that their mother gave them. Gloria made sure that the apartment was paid up, but considering that evictions were on hold, she really didn't have that much to worry about. So a few times a month, either Gloria or Brian would bring groceries to the house, which consisted mainly of like, oodles and noodles, chips, sodas, yeah, that's a real healthy diet for kids. And if it was Brian that came by, he was hitting the kids just because he felt like it. So Jordan took on the role of the caretaker and he made sure, to ration out food to his younger siblings and to try to take care of them the best that he could. Like that poor baby did everything that he could to help his brothers. He would wash dishes in the bathtub, ration out the food, and take care of his siblings with the limited resources that he had available. At times, his cell phone would die and need to be charged, and he didn't have a charger, so he would sneak out and go knock on one of the neighbors' doors to see if they would, charge his phone for him. One particular neighbor, Erica Chapman, he met when he knocked on the door and asked to use a charger to charge his phone, and she immediately picked up that something wasn't right. So she started talking to Jordan, which was something he wasn't used to, and talking to him about what was going on, kind of being an ear. And she told him, if you ever need anything, I'm here, just knock. And Jordan appreciated it, but he was still cautious. And then, he started going to her more and more, and she would see Jordan more and more. She saw him one time sleeping outside on the slide just so that he could get some sunlight. And so when he came to charge his phone the next time, she asked Jordan if he was hungry and she ordered a pizza. And it was something that Jordan said that kind of stuck with her. He ordered the pizza and said, "Oh, they'll like it." And at the time, the neighbor wasn't thinking anything of it, but it would make so much more sense later on. Because he was thinking they after his brothers. He was like, okay, I'm not just going to be selfish and eat this all. I'm going to take it home to my brothers. So, of course, she would try to offer him home cooked meals, but Jordan never accepted it because he thought that, she was trying to poison him. So they would order pizzas or sandwiches and stuff like that. He would take fruit, things of that nature. And then he would take it home and share it with his brothers. Meanwhile, Brian and Gloria were living their best life at their new place. Gloria's cooking for her man still. Now, she would text Jordan every now and then to see how they were doing, but she's not fully as dedicated as she once was to him as his mother. So in August of 2021, Gloria decides, hey, baby, we need to try to get some money. And it's been close to a year that Kendrick has died. But this trifling chick here creates a GoFundMe asking for money to keep her and her kids from getting evicted from COVID. But you on social media posting your man and ain't spoke to your kids in I don't know how long. Now, on top of that, she's still contacting her family members to get help financially, and they're just, they helping her because that's family. But she's still not giving them addresses, and, she's still meeting up with them in different places. Especially now that Kendrick is dead, because she knows her family will tell her about herself and call the cops. And every time her family asks how the kids are doing, oh, they good, knowing damn well they not. But she creates this GoFundMe August of 2021, and the next month, the power to the apartment where the kids are gets cut off. Not to her new place, but to where the children are. So now Jordan has to figure out how he's going to take care of those kids with no power. And now he's asking, having to ask the neighbors for help even more, which is just sad and scary. Now, what I did find interesting is that the apartment complex that they were living in at one point was supposed to be doing inspections. They were supposed to do them August of 2021, but they never did. The reason why they were supposed to do it was because several neighbors had called the complex to complain about a smell coming from one of the units. They're telling the landlord, hey, we don't know if something died or what, but y'all need to go check this out. It's really funky over there. And the apartment complex tells them, okay, we'll get it handled, but they never do. And I really feel like they had done that to these, had they done that, these sweet babies might have been discovered sooner. But, people are calling and filing complaints and saying that, it's stinking and rotten, which it is. And Jordan is texting his mother, telling her, Mom, can you please bring us some more food? Mom, can you please come by? I don't know what to tell the neighbors anymore. I can't take it anymore. All of that. And then one day, Jordan had had enough. He decided he was going to say something. So he texts Gloria and he warns her. He said, I can't take it anymore. I'm calling 911. Rightfully so. These babies been living in a house with no electricity, barely any food to eat, roaches and rodents everywhere, a foul stench from rotting flesh. It's more than anybody could take. So October 24th, 2021, Jordan calls 911 and he tells them that his 8-year-old brother Kendrick has been dead for almost a year and that his body was in the apartment. He tells the dispatcher, my parents haven't lived here for months. My mom is gone. She moved out. My brother is dead. He's been dead for a long time, for a while. It's just me and my 2 brothers here. And at first, the dispatchers are thinking, okay, this can't be real. This sounds insane. But they go ahead and dispatch the call, and 2 officers come out to Green Acres Drive to the apartment complex. And they come inside and they see the most insane sight. Officer Corey Castro and his partner walk in and they get in this apartment, and the first thing that hits them is that smell. There is this funky ass smell in the air. They're walking through the apartment and they're seeing there's no furniture, there's no bed, just this smell. They see makeshift mattresses on the floor, there's hardly any bedding. They go to one of the rooms and they see Jordan, Javion, and Trayvon sitting there in soiled carpets with roaches and flies everywhere. And sadness just takes over them along with shock. Like how you're envisioning it in your mind right now is what these cops are seeing right before their very eyes. These kids look malnourished, they look hungry. And so they go to one of the bedrooms where the smell is getting stronger. And there they find the remains of Kendrick Lee's body covered with a blue blanket. One of the officers that responded to the call, Officer Castro, he's just tore up. Like he looks and he sees that this baby is literally just bones, a skeleton. Trayvon and Javion, they tell the cops that their mother's boyfriend, Brian, had kicked and punched Kendrick repeatedly and how he had black eyes and had hit him with his toys until he stopped moving. And the officers ask, well, when did this happen? And Jordan looks at the officer and tells him, last year, right before Thanksgiving. And so the cops hears this and they realize it's October. He did this before Thanksgiving of last year. Y'all been sitting with this body since then? They look at Kendrick again, and based off of his decomposition, they know it's facts. So the officers ask him, well, where are your parents? And Jordan tells them they moved to an apartment complex somewhere else. And they tell him, it's just me and my brothers. So the cops are talking to Javion and Trayvon picks up a Spider-Man toy, and he tells him, this is the toy that he hurt my brother with. It was a Spider-Man figure, like one of them little figurines, and then there was a model jet as well. So he told the officers once he finished, he left him in the room, and then the next morning, mommy came in and just put the blanket over him. And the cops noticed that there's an exterior deadbolt on the door. So they know the kids were really locked in the room. Like they look, you can tell the doorknob has been taken out and there's a deadbolt put in place, but you lock it from the outside. And, word starts to get around the complex about what happened. The neighbors, they're in shock. They're finding out that these kids have been left all alone. And some of the neighbors are saying, well, yeah, okay, this makes sense. This really explains things, especially when it came to Jordan, because they had conversations with him. They thought back to how they would, try to offer him food and how he was always asking to charge his phone. He needed to charge his phone because he needed to have communication with his mother. See, Jordan was 15 trying to take care of 2 special needs kids and himself. His sisters were oblivious to what was going on because they were living normal lives. But here's the thing. At this point, Gloria knows that Jordan has called the police because he told her that he was fed up. So she tells Brian, baby, Jordan called the cops and I'm sure they probably going to the house. So They know they can't go back there, and 9 times out of 10, CPS got them kids. So for the next couple of days, they're watching the news to, see if anything comes up about it. They're going to the library to check articles online. The fact that you gotta go to the library to check articles on your online and you got a fucking cell phone, like, it's 2021. Your dumb ass don't know how to log onto your fucking phone. You could have found that out by going to Google. But for whatever reason, they were going to the library. Now, it's a few days after Jordan had initially called 911, and Brian and Gloria go to the library to check and see if anything has been said about the kids being rescued. And it was so sad because when they were rescued, I forgot to mention that Trayvon and Javion were like clinging to the officers. Javion's jaw was messed up. There were a video of like news coverage of it, and it was showing them being carried out. And it was so sweet because the officers went out of their way. Javion and Travion were saying that they wanted donuts. So they took them to Shipley's, which was this donut spot that everybody was, talking about. Like, it was so sweet. The officer, Corey Castro, he was hugging on the Trayvon so tight, and he later said, it was like hugging his own child. So at this point, the cops find out where Brian and Gloria are holed up and where they live, and they start, doing surveillance and everything. So they were taken to the station and questioned, but for whatever reason, on October 25th, 2021, the cops had to let them go. And around this time, the news is starting to publicize about what happened. The kids are put in a foster care into the child welfare system to make sure that they have no contact with Brian or Gloria. And Gloria's other 2 kids, Jasmine and her other daughter, they're finding out what happened. And they're like, wait, what? They're finding out all of this. And sadly, this is how Courtney finds out about his son, Kendrick. He found out that his son had died through the news. Like, do you know how fucked up that is to find out about your baby that you've been looking for through the fucking media? Like, that reminds me of Kobe's wife, Vanessa, finding out about Kobe and her daughter because of TMZ. She didn't get a private phone call or anything. Like, the media just blasted that shit and didn't even give her time to know what was going on. So Courtney finds out about the death of his 8-year-old son through the news, and he's devastated. But the fucked up part is people are bashing him, talking about, well, where the hell were you? And all of that. Listen, not every daddy is a deadbeat daddy. Like, some are literally left in the dark. And sadly, the system is designed to make it easier for the mothers to win than the fathers. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'll be the first to admit that. But I can say maybe he could have, possibly tried a little bit harder. I don't know if he just gave up at some point. Who knows? But we'll get into that later during Fair or Foul. So when he finds out, he's devastated because the last time he talked to Gloria was when she reached out to his wife, Dion. Turns out in December of 2020, she told Dion about how her husband had died. Mind you, at this point, she was with Brian. Kendrick was dead. And remember, Daryl died in 2019, a whole year prior. So the fact that she waited a whole year later to hit her up, and when, Dion asked how the kids were doing, all she said was, oh, they good. Then she turned around and blocked her again, which is crazy to me. Like, this bitch is off her rocker. Not only is she built like a live action Labubu, but got the brain cells of one too. So once the cops get more intel on Brian and Gloria, they go after them. And this time, they ain't leaving. The very next day, October 26, 2021, officers find Gloria and Brian at that same fucking library at Robinson West Chase Library on Willcrest to try to find out about if anyone had seen, anything about the boys being rescued. So they end up bringing them back into the station and they get charged. Gloria is charged with injury to a child by omission and tampering with evidence, tampering with a human corpse. She gets a $900,000 bond, and well, we know she ain't making that shit. The next day, Wednesday, October 27th, 2021, Brian is charged with murder, but he's off getting a mental health evaluation. The judge advised his attorney that his bond was going to be $1 million and that he wasn't supposed to have any contact with Gloria or the kids in any capacity. So the boys are in the care of CPS, and they've been in the hospital where doctors have said that they've been, malnourished and suffered physical abuse. Trayvon had to have surgery on his jaw because Brian had broken it about 3 weeks prior. On October 28th, 2021, Brian appears before the judge in court and was supposed to enter a plea, but the judge ended up recusing himself from the case. Now, he claimed it was for personal reasons, but it was never disclosed. I'm guessing that he knew this man or his family in some capacity, but I don't know, just speculating. So they get a new judge, and when Brian comes in, the judge is telling him what's going on. And Brian is asking all of these questions because he don't know what the hell is happening, and he's just, like, trying to figure out what's going on. So he was like, "Okay, what am I being charged with again? Okay, so you're saying if I'm convicted, I can get 99 years to life?" And the judge is like, "Yes, but make sure you talk to your attorney because anything you say in here can and will be used against you." Like, he's trying to help his dumb ass. But, December 10th, 2021, they hold a funeral for Kendrick at God's Word of Deliverance Church. They had to cremate his body because of the condition that it was in. So it took a couple of years for the trial to begin, but it finally did. First up was Brian's trial. Now, his trial was in April of 2024. He was up against prosecutor Andrea Bell in Judge Kelly Johnson's courthouse. His attorney was Terrence Gazer. Now, rather than have a jury, he opted for a bench trial, I guess to save himself the embarrassment of everything and everyone hearing what a piece of shit that he was. And it was smart because the judge had absolutely zero sympathy for this fool. Now, foolishly, he pleaded not guilty, which was so stupid, but the prosecution was ready. They brought several people on the stand, including Gloria and her children. So Gloria testified against Brian in exchange for a lesser sentence. Trayvon got on the stand and testified about his being in the room the next day that Kendrick had died and how he was in the room and witnessed Kendrick being killed. And he said, "I saw Brian beat Kendrick up. He used his fists." He then went on to explain how Brian had used his toys to beat Kendrick up, specifically the Spider-Man figurine and the model jet. And he said Kendrick stopped moving, and then Brian put the blue blanket on top of him. The other brothers testified via video because having them in the courtroom was too traumatic, per their counselor and their foster mom. But they talked about how often, they used to be locked in the room, and prosecutors showed photos of the bedroom door with the exterior deadbolt lock where the knob once was. And the boys told the judge that they weren't allowed to come out. They were forced to go to the bathroom inside of the bedroom. What really hurt, though, is how Jordan said that he couldn't understand why Brian would do that because he was the only father figure that they had. The prosecution also brought up text messages that were shared between Brian and Gloria, where Gloria was fussing at Brian about Kendrick having feces on him and not moving. But you let him lay there and didn't get help, girl. Ugh. So she then went on to say that he looked dead and wanted Brian to clean him up. But again, you let him lay there and didn't get help. You could have changed it. But I digress. So other text messages show where Brian was telling Gloria that it was in God's hands and that she didn't need to worry about anything. The Harris County Sheriff got on the stand and they testified about the condition of the house that they found the kids in. The investigators described the scene that they found inside the apartment as horrific, with one testifying that it was one of the worst scenes he's ever worked. So prosecutors played body camera footage showing the deputies, horror when they pulled the blue blanket back and you could see Kendrick's skeleton on the bedroom floor. There were crime scene photos taken that day showing Trayvon's swollen jaw. The investigator said that the boy was beaten so severely he needed surgery. The boys lived in the apartment without electricity or beds to sleep on, roaches everywhere. All of that was on that body cam footage. And they even talked about, the distinct smell that it was. The neighbor that had been helping Jordan out, Erica Chapman, she got on the stand and talked about her experiences with Jordan. She said that she noticed, something was wrong and started to give him food 6 months before the cops were called. And Erica said that Jordan wouldn't accept cooked meals. He would only take like packaged snacks, fruits, pizzas. And it was funny because the defense tried her. They was like, "Well, why didn't you call anyone?" Like trying to place blame on the witness. But Erica told them I didn't want to push him away by asking questions because I knew he was starving and needed food. She was gaining his trust. Like, I get that. Trevor Thompson, that was another neighbor that testified and said that Jordan was paranoid and afraid of getting poisoned. I don't know who put that. I'm assuming Gloria and Brian put that in his head. But, you know, he was like, this is the reason why he would only accept certain food. He said, "A few times I noticed the lights weren't on and it was quiet upstairs, so I figured there was trouble because the parents hadn't been there in a while." And he was like, one day he came here and knocked on the door and asked if I could charge his phone for him, and we built a bond from there. I started offering him food because I knew he needed more than just a charger. Now, there was a point, though, that some of the neighbors did make me a little mad. When they were asked why they never spoke up, they said they never called authorities because they didn't understand the magnitude of the situation. And they said that Jordan kept to himself and was quiet and didn't answer many questions, which is all the more reason I feel like that you need to call for help. If you know that you haven't seen the parents, reach out, do a welfare check. You can do it anonymous. You don't have to give your name, but do something. You know what I'm saying? Then Gloria's ass takes the stand, and now she's this loving mother, lying sack of shit. She tells the prosecution that she witnessed Brian punching Kendrick and that she tried to stop him. She talked about how the next day she went back into the room and found Kendrick dead under the blanket. Now, according to the details revealed in court, she knew he was dead, but didn't call the police because Brian told her not to. And how she was afraid her kids would be taken by CPS and she was afraid she would go to jail. Uh, duh, bitch. So all these people testify, and the judge, Kelly Johnson, she leaves to deliberate and think about everything that she's heard. She deliberates for about 20 minutes before she makes her decision. And Judge Kelly Johnson said that Brian was, in fact, guilty and told him that his case was the most horrific set of facts she's ever heard. She said, "Sir, these children have been haunting me this last week. I hope, sir, when you're in prison, those same boys that have haunted my mind haunt yours." And on April 15th, 2024, Brian Wade Coulter is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. And he is now inmate number 025-00104 at Ferguson Correctional Institute in Midway, Texas. So Gloria's trial is next, and hers is set for November of 2024. Unlike Brian, she did not request a bench trial because she took a plea deal. She had agreed to testify against Brian in exchange for a shorter sentence. So she also had the prosecutor, Andrea Beal. Her attorney was Neil Davis. But honestly, she wasn't really trying to fight like that. Like, she admitted that she knew that she had fucked up. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of injury to a child. And on November 12th, 2024, she was sentenced to 50 years. Now, on that same day, she also gave up her rights to all of her children. And Gloria has to serve at least half of her sentence before she can be eligible for parole. So she's now inmate number 025-29891 at the Hobby Correctional Institute in Marlin, Texas. And her projected release date is October 25th, 2071. She will be eligible for parole April 20th, 2027. Now, after the trials, Celeste Byram, which was the Harris County Assistant District Attorney, she spoke and she let everyone know that she was the voice for Kendrick. She said the death of Kendrick Lee was so tragic, and the fact that for so long there was no one to speak up for him, we felt like we had a duty to be his voice. And, the media, of course, they're talking to several family members, including Kendrick's father, Courtney. He was dealing with a lot of scrutiny because a lot of people were just like, well, where the hell were you? As a father, you should have been there. And they're 100% correct. But not all daddies are deadbeats. He told the media, he was like, I'm their father. I'm on their birth certificate. I'll always be their father. I will be in their life, but it's going to take time. I don't want to talk to her, see her, or hear her name. I never thought in my life there was a woman like her. If she wasn't part of it, she should have called the police. She's going to have to deal with this the rest of her life. I'm alive and I've never been incarcerated and want to be and have always wanted to be involved in my boy's life. Now, they also spoke with Javion's father, Jonathan Kirkland, and surprisingly, he blamed himself for being missing from Javion's life. He was like, I haven't seen my son for 5 years and I mostly have myself to blame. He had been in and out of jail, the last decades. You see the difference there? One parent was actively trying while the other parent was trying not to be active. But now the kids are being raised in the foster care system. Now, one person that had a lot to say was the youngest daughter's grandmother, Melody Robinson. Y'all remember her? She got the 2 girls. She did an interview with the news, and baby, she started off talking about she was very unstable. And I mean, I agree, because she was. But she went on to say, for you as a mother to watch somebody do that to your child, that's not a mother. A mother doesn't do that. Our job as a mother is to protect our children. She failed that baby. She failed her kids in that area. She did not protect her children. Again, not wrong. But what pissed me off is what she had to say about Jordan and the amount of time that it took for him to call. She said, that's one of the questions everyone wants to know. Why did he wait so long? When somebody has scared you and has had you, you watched this man kill your brother. You watched him break your other brother's jaw. I'd be afraid too. So then if you know he'd be afraid, why say that jacked up ass question? Why ask that question? Like, come on, man. So the media attempted to interview the apartment complex. However, the office manager kicked their asses out. But they ended up speaking with Sergeant Wolford, who was over the case, and he talked about how, sweet the kids were, how they had this sadness, but were still so sweet and innocent. Bob Sanborn, who was the president and CEO of Children at Risk, told ABC 13 that, the pandemic had made matters worse for vulnerable children. He said, it's very easy for these kids to fall through the cracks. Texas has always relied on teachers to be that line of first defense for child abuse, and these kids never got to that place where a teacher could identify what was going on with them or begin an investigation or alert CPS or others to what was happening. But they had an open case since 2015, so yeah. But yes, y'all, this is the story of Brian Coulter and Gloria Williams. And now it's time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if the sentencing that was given was indeed fair, or if it's just some bullshit that's going to have us sitting back saying, what the fuck? Okay, so there's many areas that we can look at right now. First of all, Brian getting life in prison, perfect. I hope that while he's in there that his ass gets stretched wider than Patrick Ewing's nose. Like, I feel like Brian is one of them people that when he was a kid got picked on and, now that he's an adult, he decides to take out his anger and frustration out on kids because he knows they're defenseless. Walking around flexing about how much jewelry, you got on and how much your jewelry costs, but you sleeping on an air mattress. You having GoFundMe's created to pay bills. You can't even pay no bills, but you walking around here talking about you got $30,000 on your neck and your wrist, beating up on little kids to make yourself feel better. You better hope your fucking neck don't turn gangrene from that damn rusted ass jewelry that you was wearing. This Hey Arnold looking ass probably never even, tried to fight a real man. You using kids as victims because you know that they can't fight back, you little bitch. And speaking of bitches, Gloria, with your low budget cabbage patch head ass looking self, how the fuck you sit there and let a man beat the fuck out of your kids and you not stop it? Like seriously, what kind of mama are you? Oh, I know the answer to that one. You a ain't shit mama. But then when you get caught and you about to get locked up, all of a sudden oh, I should have stopped it. I didn't know it was so bad. I wanted to stop it. No, you didn't. Your hoe ass wanted to hop from bed to bed, man to man. Your hot pocket out here looking like Arby's roast beef. Your ass wanted to have a man so bad that you didn't care how it hurt your kids. You didn't care what you was doing to your children. The amount of stress and trauma that you caused these children. This boy had a cell phone. He could call 911 the first day, but he was so manipulated into thinking that he would get into trouble that he didn't. And then you had the audacity to sit there and move out of the fucking house. You left your kids in an apartment that was full of feces and rats and roaches and rodents and shit and all kind of stuff and God knows what else. And then instead of just you trying to be a better parent and telling Brian, hey, I don't want you putting your hands on my kids or taking help from family members instead of being with a fuck nigga, can't even say fuck nigga, but instead of being with a fuck boy, you decide to go the alternative of just ignoring it. He wasn't even punishing them for valid reasons. You were punishing them for simply being kids. Like, what the hell? I have no sympathy for parents like that. I have no sympathy for parents that will sit there and watch somebody abuse their child and do nothing about it. Or for them to abuse their child and do nothing about it. That shit irks me to the core. And y'all know I am very transparent with y'all. I disclose things about my personal life at times in an effort to help others so that they can understand that this is, shit happens. And I've experienced the same thing as a child where I had a parent that allowed their spouse to beat the fuck out of me. And instead of her stopping it, she just turned the other way and acted like she didn't see it. That's not how you handle that shit. I myself have dealt with a parent that put their hands on their child and was disciplining them for stupid shit, that beat the fuck out of their child because their kid was being a kid, but because he couldn't handle it and because he had anger issues, he took it out on that child and that child will psychologically never be the fucking same. You are their mother. You had these children. If you didn't want these kids so bad, why not give them to their relatives? Why not let Courtney come and get his sons? Especially since he kept asking you to see them. But because your ego was so bruised because he didn't want to be with you no more, you took them fucking kids away. Why not let Jonathan come get his son once he got out? Why not act right when you were living with Linda? Why you got niggas at another person's house? The two girls were living with Melody. They were good. Why couldn't you do the same thing for them? Oh, and speaking of that, what kind of mama let her child live on the streets at 15? Jasmine was out on the streets and wanting to live on the streets instead of living with you. Do you know how that makes you look? She would have much rather lived with strangers than to have lived with you. Thank God for Melody because she swooped in and said, hey, I'm going to be there for those babies. She took in both your daughters. She didn't have to do that because only one of them was hers. But what was most hurtful is that you left that sweet child in there to rot. Not once did you think, hey, let me at least get my son buried. Not once did you think it's a pandemic. It might be easier for me to get rid of this body. Not saying that that's, something I condone, but at least think about an alternative instead of just leaving that body there to rot. Why would you leave the body in the house where it can rot and where other people can smell it? Especially during a pandemic when people are dying left and right and the slightest smell of something being foul, they're going to come investigate it. Why would you leave a body where other people will eventually complain about the smell, you lazy bitch? The fact that you only got 50 years and made a deal with prosecution is bogus as hell to me. I wish the judge would have given you a longer sentence that you so deserve because just because you didn't kill Kendrick doesn't mean that you didn't kill Kendrick. You didn't stop it. You had every opportunity as a parent and you chose not to. Why? What was your reason? How can you just sit back and do absolutely nothing all this time? There were so many opportunities where you could have done the right thing, where you could have called somebody and asked for help with these kids, but you didn't want to lose out on the financial benefits. You didn't want to lose out on the money or the checks that you were getting. And hell, you were benefiting from a dead child. The fact that you literally just packed up and moved. You took advantage of the pandemic knowing that there was a moratorium on evictions. You moved to a whole other complex and didn't even bother to take your kids with you. You trifling. You left them there to wallow. You left them there to die. The psychological damage that these kids endured is ridiculous. The fact that you even get the opportunity for parole bugs the shit out of me. You did not, no, you technically did not kill your child, but you killed him in so many other ways. And then you go on living your life as if nothing happened, all for a man. You moved out of that apartment in March. That baby died in November of 2020. You lived in that apartment with his dead body for another 5 months before you moved out. And then from there, you lived on your own for 7 months, leaving your kids alone for 7 months. You didn't even bother to have electricity for them and give them the bare essentials to survive. What kind of shiesty shit is that? That's just low down. And to add insult to injury, you get opportunity to get parole after 25 years? No, ma'am. Your ass deserves to rot in prison. You deserve to suffer the way you made Jordan suffer. You deserve to do that because you manipulated him. You deserve to suffer the way you made Jasmine suffer. You ran her up out your home. You deserve to suffer the way you made Trayvon suffer. He got a broken jaw. You deserve to suffer the way you made Javion suffer. He witnessed his brother be killed in front of him. You deserve to suffer the way Kendrick suffered. He's dead because of abuse and negligence. I can only hope that Courtney and Jonathan get themselves together so that they can try to get custody back of their children or have the relationship with them that you stole from them. And I know later on after the trial, Jordan sued Gloria as he should have, but Jordan also endured a lot of trauma. Javion has endured a lot of damage. Think of the level of psychological trauma that they went through. He had an entire cell phone and could have called for help at any time, but was that scared. That's a new level of toxicity. He could have gotten help early on, but he was that scared that he never used his phone to do so. And even when he did, he still called you first. He could have gotten help early on, but he was so scared. And luckily, those girls weren't there in the household to endure it. But they were still a part of the abuse cycle. I can only hope that now that these kids get the help that they really need, that they break that cycle at some point. And Gloria, I can only hope that you realize the damage that you've done to your children. The best thing that you did for them as a mother was give up your parental rights so that they could somewhat live normal lives. And for those that were saying that the neighbors should have called 911 a lot sooner, you're absolutely right. They should have. But let's be real. Did they have solid proof? They never saw Gloria or Brian like that. Hell, they didn't know that they had kids. And if it had gotten to the point where CPS was involved, I doubt it would have helped because CPS had an open case on these kids since 2015. And yet they were still in this fool's care. Do you really think that they were going to come through for them? Because it didn't seem that way. It seemed like they would have reported it and nothing would have happened. And if anything, it would have been worse for the kids. So I can understand why Erica formed that bond with Jordan versus just calling 911 and leaving it alone. She didn't want to scare him off. I can see why she didn't call 911 right away. You have to build a rapport and show them that you're trustworthy. If she had called and nothing had been done, he wouldn't have gotten the little help from her that he did get, and God only knows what would have happened then. And Grandma Melody, your mouth a little reckless. You had them living in your home at one point. You talking about she was unfit, but did you try to do anything when they were living with you to intervene? Or was it just no longer your problem? And then to speak on Jordan as to why it took him so long, that's out of pocket. Until you live that trauma, you don't know what he went through. You weren't there in the home with these babies every day, so you don't know what they endured. And then I also think that the apartment complex is partially at fault because they never did the check for the unit like they should have. If you got multiple residents calling you saying that they're smelling something, that something is wrong, fucking go check it out. Get the maintenance man in there. You ain't got to go yourself. Get the maintenance man to go in there or something. And then you get an attitude when you get caught and questioned. Ugh. I'm sorry, y'all. But yes, to steer everything back on course. As far as the sentencing, yeah, Ryan definitely got what he deserved, but I wish that Gloria had gotten more than the 50 years. I wish that her ass had gotten life as well. A life for a life. These were your kids. If anything, you deserve more punishment because you let it happen. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's a number one, by the way, not spelled out, and you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. But please be advised, if you don't answer the questions, you're not getting in. I say it week after week. It's that simple. But of course, once you do get in, hey boo, let's chop it up because we talking about the real in there and everything. So come on in, take a seat, tell us where you're from. Y'all know the drill. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on. So leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. The reviews matter. And we're going to get to a couple of them now. The first review comes from Spotify from Cheryl on the episode of Fathers Fight for Justice, which was Anaya Day and the mom that, basically let her 4-year-old die. It says, I just started listening and trying to catch up. Love it. Well, welcome to the mob, boo. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. The next review comes from Apple Podcasts from Jericho89, and it's a 5-star review on also the same episode of Fathers Fight for Justice. And it says, loving the way the stories are told. Sounds more like a friend chopping it up with you than an education of true crimes. Thank you, boo. Yes, I like to make it fun, so, it don't get boring. So thank you for that. I also wanted to shout out this girl that said she got put on while she was getting her lashes done. I can't remember her name, but when she answered the question to get in the Facebook group, it asked how you were, made aware of the show. And she said that her lash tech was listening to it when she came for an appointment, and she been hooked ever since. So I definitely appreciate that. Like that'd be the best time to listen to some true crime when you getting your hair done or your nails done. I was getting my hair braided one day, and we were sitting there watching episode after episode of Fatal Attraction the whole time. Like, it was so much fun. Okay, reminder, y'all. In April, I will be doing the Celebrities Who Left Too Soon series, where I talk about gruesome cases involving celebrities that were found murdered in the most horrific way. So make sure you stay tuned for that. All right, y'all. I have seen the votes in the Facebook group on where the next live event will be. If you know, I was talking about doing the whole Infamous Ones Who Done It style competition. And so I put a bunch of different states in the group for people to vote on. So the next city where the live show is gonna be in the state of Georgia, baby. Apparently, y'all really love Georgia. So I am looking for a city other than Atlanta, because Atlanta is extremely saturated there. So it's either going to be in like Savannah or Columbus, but I'll keep you updated on that as well as the specific date. I was going to do it in June, but I have another little surprise that I'm cooking up for you guys. So July is going to be the date for the competition. It's going to be at some point in July, and it's either going to be end of May or June. I have something else that I'm cooking up for you guys. Okay. So I've been talking with another podcaster, and we're going to do a joint live show like you have never seen, but we're ironing out the details. So hopefully by next week's episode, I'll be able to give you more information, and the tickets will go on sale for that like immediately. So just, stay tuned for that. I'm trying to have the tickets for the competition. There's going to be a grand prize of $500 to the person that solves the crime for the whodunit competition. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Like I said, that one I was originally doing it for June. I might just do both in June. I don't know, but we're gonna work it out. Everything is going to be ironed out by the end of this month. No worries. Okay. Make sure to follow the Black Box for new episodes. You can follow on whatever app you listen to the show on because, duh, it's a part of the infamous ones. Ha! If you want to support the show or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor that we've been sipping on, go ahead and click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. Subscriptions start at 99¢. You can also donate via the Cash App to $infamous1pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward court documentations, interviews, and all of that. Oh, and shout out to the popcorn donators. Gang, gang. Love y'all. If you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. Once again, people, please share, share, share. This podcast is growing by the day, and it means the world, so keep sharing. Until then, y'all know what time it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Stay mobbing, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.